Is this working? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Are you sure? Okay. I'm asking about something that I think has been a little bit of unfinished business, and that's that I agree that we're an enlightened community, and that's in large part because of the university, which I greatly appreciate. But in keeping with being enlightened, we as a council have made reducing disparate treatment by our police force a priority. Creating our new consolidated department, working with the ACLU, we worked with the ACLU to develop policies, including making available statistics for police stops and uses of force by race public, something no other department in the state has done without a court order. We have also taken steps recommended by academic research, including at the forum that I watched a video of, that was emphasizing that the best, most effective way to reduce disparate treatment is to standardize procedures across the board, including handcuffing. So you handcuff everybody, you don't just decide who to handcuff, because that ends up introducing bias into the issue, into the procedure. But when Professor Amani Perry was arrested and handcuffed, the story blew up. You failed to acknowledge any of this, either before or after, when the facts became clear. I would like to know whether you believe that our police department followed proper procedures and was blameless.
I think there was an investigation. I think the investigation was a good one that this council put together, and based on all the information that I've seen from that, the department did follow its procedures. I would say, and I want to say something more about the issue and exactly what I said about this. First of all, I want to say I have great respect, and I've said this before, and I said it in a written communication to you, Jenny, that you received at the time. Great respect for Chief Sutter, and great respect for what it is he's done, and great respect for what it is that the police force has done. I have reservations, and I've talked to people around the country who have reservations about the New Jersey practice of taking unpaid parking tickets and turning those into arrest warrants, right? So I don't think that's an ideal way to run. And I understand that's not a criticism of Chief Sutter. And I do think there's a question from my standpoint. You have to have rules, whether the right rule is that everybody brought in pursuant to a warrant is handcuffed to a chair, whether that's the right rule or not, if you're going to eliminate discretion, I think is an arguable question at least. And again, there are certainly people, including some people in law enforcement, who take a different view of that. But I respect the way the chief runs his department, the way Princeton officers carry out their duties, and the way they carried out their duties in that case. I also respect, and there are people who look at that case, I have to say, and so I'm going to take one side or the other. I also respect the pain that our professor went through and the reaction she had. And I had to say, I said to people at the time, I'll say it again now, if I had been through that, and was suddenly finding myself handcuffed to a chair, I'd be asking, what the heck, why me? Why are they handcuffing me to a chair at this point? And I have the advantage of going through that as a white male. I was really struck, and I repeat this story because I asked him afterwards whether I could do it, but my friend Michael Drake, who's the vice chancellor at Ohio State University, and one of the very few African-American presidents or vice chancellors in this country, got up in front of all the AAU presidents at a meeting, and he said to them, I wonder, how many of you in this audience, that is the other presidents of major research universities, have ever been detained by police in some way? And he said, I don't mean your traffic stop. I mean, something like actually being arrested on a warrant or being held aside for a little while somebody calls something in. And he then raised his hand. No other president in the room raised their hand. And he said, I guess none of you have been held aside twice. And he said, 5 times? Michael Drake is an extraordinary man. He is a physician. He was previously dean of a medical school, vice chancellor at the University of California, Irvine, and now chancellor at Ohio State. And it was not a coincidence that he was the only one who had experienced this once, and he had experienced it 5 times, and I think it was important under the circumstances that we faced and that our students were thinking about as they looked at what was happening to a professor who was genuinely beloved by them. For me to recognize the experience that she went through and the experiences that some of those students had in their communities and may have had on our campus. So that's what I spoke about. What I spoke about was my sympathy for Professor Perry, but I also am happy to speak to and reiterate my respect for Chief Sutter. You can have tough incidents where there's something important to be learned from both sides.
But I feel like you're not really addressing the issue. I agree with everything you said, and I know that, and I don't want to go into my own credentials of how important race and police disparity is to me, but it is very important, and that's one of the reasons I pushed to have our police department work with the ACLU. And what happened, I agree with everything you said, but I still didn't hear. You never, at the time, I think it would have been helpful to especially because what happened is all the racists then start using that story for their own purposes. And, and they say, look, and they use all of the arguments about what she was doing and why she was arrested, and then they show the video of how nice the police was to her for racist purposes, because we weren't I don't think you were acknowledged that actually ever after it happened that actually our police were following good procedures. And in my view, it made the problem worse. I mean, I read all the comments and they were horribly racist all over the country on the New York Times website, and I think it would have actually helped if we had gotten a little positive press for our town for being at the forefront of addressing disparate treatment, which we are. I mean, I don't know if any other force in the country does as much as we do. And I still feel like you haven't, instead of answering my question, you talked about the issue of disparate police policies, not your never acknowledging our efforts, and that as a community, that we are all one community and we're all working for that.
Well, Jenny, I do believe we're all one community. I do believe we share these values, and I respect what you've done in that regard.
Well, I think let's, if you don't mind, I was on the same topic, so I thought I would jump in and then